One of the most persistent questions for anyone studying true crime is just how difficult is it to prosecute a case when there is no body? The truth is, it depends. But if the physical evidence exists, and there is sufficient circumstantial evidence along with proof of life investigations, including use of bank cards, attendance at appointments, cell phone calls, and no response to multiple welfare checks indicating that someone is no longer alive, then it is certainly possible. Especially if the alleged perpetrators do things that are, well, somewhat fishy after the person was last seen alive. And these same perpetrators have motive for wanting that missing person dead. In today's case, the victim's body has still not been found. But even though they were last seen some 5 years ago, recent legal proceedings have seen at least some degree of justice meted out, depending on what your perception of justice is. There are still loose ends to be tied up in this ongoing saga, but I believe there have been enough consequences and ramifications to warrant this tragic story being told. This is the extremely sad case of Jennifer Dulos, and this is Murder of Crows. Jennifer Farber was born in New York City on the 27th of September 1968. Her parents were Gloria Ortenberg and Hilliard Farber, and she had an older sister called Melissa. Her childhood was comfortable and money was never an issue. Her aunt, by marriage to her uncle Arthur Ortenberg, was Elizabeth Claiborne, who founded the fashion company Liz Claiborne. Not really relevant, but an interesting nugget nonetheless. Jennifer was very creative, and she attended the prestigious Brown University before moving on to do a master's in writing at the New York Tisch School of the Arts. So she was definitely intelligent and a high achiever. But it was a man that she met while at Brown University that would end up casting a vile shadow over the rest of her life. Not that she was aware of this when she began pursuing him in the mid-2000s, and this man was named Fotis Dulos. Fotis Dulos was born in Turkey in 1967 and was raised in Athens, Greece. He moved to the US in 1986 to attend Brown University, graduating in 1989, and then moving on to gain a master's in finance from Columbia Business School. In 2000, he married a Brown University graduate, Hilary Aldama. They married in Athens, but this marriage would only last 4 years before a divorce in 2004. Also in 2004, Dulos made a significant foray into the business world, founding a real estate company called 4 Group, based in Connecticut. And this was a company that specialized in high-end luxury homes. When his marriage to Hilary was in its end stages, Dulos struck up an email correspondence relationship with Jennifer Farber. This correspondence spilled over into real life after Dulos' divorce was finalized, and their romance was a textbook whirlwind, with the couple marrying only 6 months after Dulos' divorce from Hilary in 2004. They married in Manhattan and made a home in Farmington, Connecticut. Over the next few years, they welcomed 5 children, which included 2 sets of twins. And while she was a stay-at-home mother and money was never an issue, she did earn her own income as a writer for Patch.com, and she further flexed her writing skills by running her own blog. For several years, all seemed rosy. But that's how these things often seem, and we will never really know when issues began within the relationship. But by 2012, Jennifer started to give indications of the red flags that were in the apparently picture book relationship. Because it was in that year that Jennifer ominously wrote on her blog, "I wish I were a strong person and that confrontation did not both scare and appall me." And this was the first time that she'd publicly stated a level of discontent with her life. Over the next several years, the Dulos marriage eroded and the couple drifted apart, with Fotis Dulos apparently becoming increasingly abusive as the love was replaced by apathy and indifference. In the 5 years between 2012 and 2017, Fotis Dulos would become more and more disconnected from Jennifer, to the point that he was practically living an independent life. By 2017, Jennifer knew that there was no way back, so she filed for divorce and took the children to live in a house that she had rented in New Canaan, some 70 miles from Farmington. And when this happened, the legal proceedings were then taking their course. And of course, this is where these matters should have ended. But it was with the ongoing legal issues and divorce proceedings that things got ugly. Very ugly. In the latter stages of their marriage, Jennifer strongly suspected that Fotis had started an affair with a Venezuelan woman named Michelle Troconis. But more pressing than this were fears around her own safety, especially as she had filed for divorce. And she stated within the actual divorce filings, "I know that filing for divorce and filing this motion will enrage him. I know he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way. And additionally, Fotis flexed his misogynistic controlling muscles by threatening to kidnap the children if he did not get his own way in terms of the divorce settlement. Several court orders were filed by Jennifer against Fotis, all of which he ignored and violated with impunity. Fotis was further enraged when Jennifer's mother sued Fotis in the matter of around $1.7 million in loans to him that had not been repaid. As matters progressed regarding the divorce, Jennifer was awarded sole custody of the children, while Fotis could only have supervised visitation, and his phone calls would be monitored. But then we get to May the 24th, 2019. On that day, Jennifer dropped her children off at New Canaan Country School at around 8 a.m. as she normally did, and cameras in her neighborhood captured her returning home. But after this, things become somewhat murky in terms of Jennifer's physical location. The first alarm bell for those who knew Jennifer came when she missed doctor's appointments at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. in New York City. In and of itself, not a huge deal, maybe something came up. But it was unlike Jennifer to miss appointments. Her Chevy Suburban was seen on camera footage leaving her home at around 10:25 a.m. But whether she was driving or not could not be confirmed from the grainy and distant footage. When she still had not returned home by 7 p.m. and had made no contact with anyone to explain where she was and what she was doing, 2 friends reported her missing. Now, one of these friends was also Jennifer's nanny, and her name was Lauren Almeida. She explained to the police that she had arrived at the home at around 11:30 a.m. She said that Jennifer had planned to take her Range Rover for the trip to New York for the medical appointment. But while at the home, Lauren saw the Range Rover was still there, and that it was the Suburban that was missing. Perhaps not a big thing, but Lauren found it a bit odd. But that wasn't as odd as what the police found upon searching the house. Upon a forensic search of the home, police found numerous examples of blood spatter. The nature and extent of the marks, most of which were confirmed as being Jennifer's blood, indicated that Jennifer had likely come to harm. In addition, one particular blood stain on the kitchen taps was found to be a mixture of both Jennifer's blood and, surprise, surprise, said no one, that of Fotis Dulos. It was hypothesized that when the Suburban left Jennifer's home at around 10:25 that morning, it was Fotis who was driving, and that Jennifer, either incapacitated or already dead, was in the car along with any materials from an attack and or a cleanup. But when Fotis Dulos' movements were tracked for the rest of that day, they sure as hell indicated that he had something to hide. Fotis and his girlfriend Michelle Troconis were seen all over Hartford, Connecticut, which was the nearest big city to Fotis' home in Farmington, and they were dumping rubbish bags at up to 30 different bins around the city. The police recovered as many of the bags as they could, and they were found to contain pieces of bloodied clothing and blood-stained cleaning items. The blood was found to be that of Jennifer, and in addition, Fotis' DNA was found on the inside of a glove in one of the rubbish bags. Jennifer's Chevy Suburban was found on the side of a road just 3 miles from her New Canaan home. The evidence may be circumstantial, but it sure as hell tells only one story. The initial focus of the investigation was, of course, to find Jennifer Dulos. Over the days after her disappearance, there had been no activity on her bank cards or her phone. Every resource was used, including canine units, divers and helicopters, to try to find any trace of the missing mother. But nothing was found. Over the weeks and months that followed, various locations were searched and excavated, but were unsuccessful. Jennifer's children were placed in the custody of her mother, and in October of 2023, an expedited declaration of death was made for Jennifer, since Jennifer's mother was elderly and needed the declaration so that she could make long-term plans for the children's future. The lack of a body did make things more difficult in terms of what the authorities could definitively prove. On June the 1st, 2019, Fotis and Troconis were arrested at a hotel in Avon, Connecticut, and charged with tampering with evidence and hindering prosecution. There was no evidence at that time to warrant any more serious charges, and they were arrested several times on these charges over the months that followed Jennifer's disappearance, but each time the charges were vehemently denied. By October, Michelle Troconis and her 10-year-old daughter had moved out of Fotis' mansion home. Trouble in paradise. But the police were absolutely not going to let Fotis and Troconis get away with what they had almost certainly done. With this in mind, they were both arrested again. Fotis for capital murder and kidnapping, and his former girlfriend with conspiracy to commit murder. Another player in this sickening scenario came into play here, with Fotis' friend and attorney, Kent Morwinny, also arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, indicating that the police felt that he was heavily involved with Fotis' plan to regain control of his estranged wife, perhaps because Morwinny was having similar control issues with his own estranged wife, who had accused him of spousal rape. What a delight! While Jennifer's family did not have the body to bid farewell to her and gain some level of closure, they did release a statement following the arrests in January of 2020 that showed that the authorities were not willing to drop her case. And their statement said, "Although we are relieved that the wait for these charges is over, for us there is no sense of closure. Nothing can bring Jennifer back. We miss her every day and we will forever mourn her loss." Now, if you thought that would be that and these horrid folks would go to prison and rot, then you'd be wrong. Money talks, and it sure as hell ensures bail. Fotis Dulos had bail set at $6 million, but he was released on bail the next day, where he needed to return to court on the 28th of February. Troconis was released on bail and required to return to court on August the 6th. Mowini had bond set at $2 million, which he could not raise, so was being held in prison. But when the bond was successfully reduced to $246,000, he ended up being released on bail in October of 2020. Shortly after Fotis Dulos was released on bail, there was an emergency bond hearing scheduled for January the 28th, 2020, that he was required to attend, but he failed to show up. Police attended his home, where the cockwomble was found in an unresponsive state in his SUV in the garage of his Farmington property. He had used a hose to fill his car with carbon monoxide from the car's exhaust pipe. Life-saving measures were performed and a faint pulse was detected. He was transported to a specialist hospital in the Bronx, where it was hoped that hyperbaric oxygen therapy would aid in his recovery. But life support was turned off after 2 days, and he was pronounced dead. After delays relating to COVID and, Fotis Dulos having topped himself and that, Michelle Troconis' trial on the charges of conspiracy to commit murder, among other charges, began on the 11th of January of this year, 2024. And the trial lasted over a month and a half and only concluded on the 1st of March 2024. After 12 hours of jury deliberations spread over 3 days, and she was found guilty.
Michelle Troconis found guilty today to conspiring to kill Connecticut mother Jennifer Dulos.
Troconis was convicted on all counts, including conspiracy to commit murder and 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence. The body of Jennifer Dulos has never been found after she disappeared in 2019.
CBS 2's Tony Aiello has been following this case since the very beginning. He is live tonight in Stamford. Tony.
Maurice, 1,743 days since Jennifer Farber Dulos disappeared from her home in New Canaan. For her friends and family, today brought a measure of justice, but tonight it's hard not to think about her 5 children. Their mother murdered by their father, who then died by suicide while awaiting trial. So tonight, for the first time, his one-time girlfriend is the first to face justice. It was 3.5 minutes after 11 in courtroom 4A when Michelle Troconis heard the word she'd been dreading.
Guilty.
After that word was spoken 5 more times, Troconis fell into her chair, overcome by emotion. Her family, at her side throughout the trial, left court saying the system failed.
Today we are here devastated because has been a tremendous injustice in the trial of my daughter. She's innocent.
I know that everyone wanted answers. I know that maybe the state is happy that they finally convicted her or someone is paying for the price, but she's not the right one.
The jury of 3 women and 3 men spent about 14 hours deliberating, finding the state proved Michelle Troconis conspired with Fotis Dulos to murder his estranged wife Jennifer in May 2019. Troconis lying to provide Dulos an alibi.
Fotis jumps into the shower with me.
And helping him dispose of bloody evidence. Jennifer Farber Dulos was mother of 5 children. A costly divorce and custody battle with Fotis Dulos, the bitter prelude to the crime. The prosecution argued Troconis came to hate Jennifer. Defense attorney John Schoenhorn said the case was built on speculation and guesswork.
I truly just don't see how the jury could have reached this verdict. We're going to challenge whether or not the trial had errors that should be reconsidered, and if not reconsidered in this court, then we'll go to the appellate or Supreme Court.
The longtime nanny, who's now like a mom to the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida, left court smiling. A statement from Jennifer's family said, Jennifer's grace, goodness, and light live on through her children.
Sentencing is scheduled for May the 31st, and she could face up to 50 years in prison on the conspiracy charge alone. I will, of course, keep you informed of any update. Kent Mawhinney is still awaiting trial for his own conspiracy to commit murder charges. But he was recently in the news because of media confusion around his not testifying at the trial of Michelle Troconis.
Well, a dramatic verdict in Connecticut nearly 5 years after mother of 5 Jennifer Dulos disappeared. The jury convicting Michelle Troconis on all 6 counts yesterday, including conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with physical evidence as well, and hindering the prosecution. Now, Troconis dated Jennifer Dulos' estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, back in 2019. That's when Jennifer went missing in May of that year. Her body was never discovered, so there was a lot of circumstantial evidence in this case. Officials later declared her legally dead. That's when prosecutors charged Fotis with her murder. They say Troconis was a co-conspirator and helped cover it all up. So in addition to Michelle Troconis, there is another key person in this case who did not take the witness stand. We're talking about her co-defendant, Kent Mawhinney. He's awaiting trial right now on charges of conspiracy to commit murder as well. Although McKinney was on the list of witnesses who could have been called to testify, neither prosecutors nor the defense put him on the stand. His attorney saying last month that despite what was stated in court, his client did not invoke his Fifth Amendment right to avoid testifying. Now today, his attorney sent Fox 61 this statement. I'm going to read it in part, quote, "The senseless murder of Jennifer Farber was a horrific crime. We hope the verdict in the Troconis case provides a measure of relief for the Farber family and friends. That verdict has nothing to do with Kent Mawhinney. However, his name was barely mentioned over 6 weeks of trial, and for good reason. He was not involved in the death of Jennifer Dulos," end quote. Mawhinney has been released on house arrest since May, a date for his trial not yet scheduled, but of course we'll be following that as we have throughout.
No trial date has yet been set for him, but as before I will of course let you know any updates. So a warm and friendly mother was tragically murdered by her estranged husband in yet another case of uxoricide. Despite her having warned authorities many times that she felt that she was in danger and that he meant her harm. The case is made even more tragic by the fact that her body has never been found, and also the fact that the main perpetrator took the coward's way out rather than facing justice. There will still be two people facing the justice system, but it does feel like cold comfort to those who miss Jennifer Dulos. But Jennifer's family and friends have said that they will never ever give up trying to find her remains and bring her home. But there has been
The disappearance and presumed death of Jennifer Dulos put that issue of domestic violence into this major spotlight. And as the case goes to trial this week, we are looking at what we've learned from the New Canaan mom of 5 story and what people need to know if they or someone they love is in trouble. Mary Jane Foster with the Interval House, a nonprofit committed to tackling domestic violence in our state of Connecticut. Mary Jane, always great to have you on the couch. Sadly, it's on topics like these. We are some 4+ years removed from Jennifer Dulos' death, or presumed death and disappearance. What has struck you the most about her story, do you think?
Well, I think what we are grateful for in this tragedy is that her death has shone a very bright light on the issue of domestic violence, of intimate partner abuse, and how, in fact, lethal it can be. For better or for worse, when we think about victims of domestic violence, we don't think about people who look like Jennifer Dulos or who have the history that Jennifer Dulos had. We don't think that if you were raised in privilege, highly educated, beautiful, smart, talented, that these things can happen to you. And what we learned in the Dulos case, which we have to keep learning over and over, sadly, is that it can happen to anyone, anytime.
Over the weekend, I was at the Reservoir in West Hartford, where I run regularly. Took some video with my cell phone. This memorial to Jennifer has been there for years. People have been looking at it and walking by it for years. Why did her story connect with so many folks in the way that it has?
I think for a number of reasons. One is because, again, we just didn't believe that this could happen to someone like that, or it could happen in a wealthy community. And she was so vibrant and so warm and so beloved in her community that her family and her friends have made sure that this did not disappear.
Her estranged husband took his own life before a verdict in this case. He was facing a murder charge. Is that frustrating? Is it upsetting? Does that factor into your thought process that you did not get a verdict on that front with him?
I don't think of it that way, because it would be frustrating, constantly frustrating, because so many of these homicides end finally with a suicide. And so while we all want justice, justice is defined in multiple ways. So I just don't think of it in those terms.
What I think is perhaps most powerful about the work that you do in the organization that you're with is not only are you helping people in need, but you're also empowering people to make the best choices for themselves. For somebody at home who's watching this morning, struggling themselves in a domestic situation, or they know someone who is, what do they do, Mary Jane, right now?
Believe it or not, our 24/7 hotline, which is free and is confidential. We never disclose. We do not disclose anything that comes into us, ever. And it's free. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. And of the 5,000 calls that we get roughly on an annual basis, most of those are calls from people who are looking for information. They don't know what's happened to their relationship. Remember, these are two people who fell in love, put their hope, faith, and trust in each other, and all of a sudden, it's changed, and it's dark, and it's scary. So most of those calls are for information. So if you are feeling like something is off, if you are feeling threatened or intimidated, or you know someone who is, call a hotline, the statewide hotline or your local domestic violence agency, and talk to someone.
All right, we will get that information on our website.
Degree of legacy for Jennifer Dulos. In the state of Connecticut, Jennifer's law was passed that expands the definition of domestic violence to include coercive control. And Jennifer's law was named jointly for Jennifer Dulos and also Jennifer Magnano. Jennifer Magnano was estranged from her husband Scott, but he shot her and then himself in a murder-suicide in front of the children, as you do. Like Jennifer Dulos, Jennifer Magnano was locked in divorce and child custody proceedings with her estranged husband. The new law expanded the state's definition of domestic violence to include coercive control, which was defined as a pattern of behavior toward a person who is or has been an intimate partner or family or household member, which causes fear or harm to such person or restricts such person's freedom of action. Examples of behavior that the law identifies as coercive control include not only physical violence or the threat of physical violence, but also stalking and cyberstalking, isolating a person from family, friends, and other sources of support, denying a person resources that are needed for independence, and manipulative control over a person's activities. Now, these have been long overdue changes to the law, but at least it grants Jennifer Dulos an ongoing legacy. This video is, of course, dedicated to Jennifer Dulos, whose life was ended by a narcissistic cockwomble with a little help from his friends. She was beautiful, intelligent, creative, and a wonderful mother. And I truly hope that she is found and returned home in due course so that she and her family can be at peace. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I'm Steve. Samson is around and about somewhere, but I'm not quite sure exactly where at the moment. But in his absence, I will just say, I will see you when I see you.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it, you say